Hi, I'm Damon from Capital Partners, here with Kathryn Creasy, fellow principal and wealth advisor, and we're just having a chat today about the importance of a holistic approach to financial advisory and wealth management. Kat, what do you reckon? Holistic approach?
I think it's very important. Holistic meaning that you're taking a view of the client's entire situation to do the planning piece. So I think it's important to understand what's going on for them, their goals, what they're looking to achieve, that whole starting with the end in mind. And then you can actually put in a plan together, thinking about everything that might be going on for them, so that you can really get them on a track that's going to put them where they want to be. And so often I think people think financial planning investment, but how can you create an investment plan for someone if you don't know what it needs to do for them?
Yeah. And the importance of that holistic approach, investments aside, is how can you possibly advise someone on one aspect and not consider the flow-on impact to other aspects of their life, family, and financial position? So I can definitely relate to what you're saying about that holistic approach, and all-encompassing is really important, and that, let alone before we even introduce the money into the equation.
Yeah, I think when I think about holistic planning as well, I'm not necessarily, I don't think we're just thinking about what we do. I think we're also thinking about almost the orchestration of all of the other professionals that might be involved for someone, because you can imagine that when we're doing work for someone, we have a really good understanding of their position, such that when you need to bring someone else in, like an estate planning lawyer, we first off can see the need for whatever the other professional might be, and then we can start the conversation knowing all of the, maybe not all, but a lot of the context that needs to be given to the other professional to make sure that they get the right outcome.
Yeah, the world's full of content, isn't it? And that's probably generally what I observe in the industry is it's all focused on, well, what can we do for you? We can do X, Y, and Z, we can build this portfolio, but that context I think is really important, especially with external parties to the relationship. Give them it's almost like a head start, isn't it, into the actual key issues that's going on for them that need to be resolved.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
You said a really pivotal word previously, goals. How does that work into the process for you from what you observe?
I think it's so much easier to create and stick to a plan if you're planning for something, and you can take that back to the simple act of engaging children in saving for something. Like, kids are going to go, if you give them pocket money, they're going to want to go and spend it. If there is something in mind, like a specific toy or a holiday, or as they get older, a car, they're so much more likely to stick to a savings plan. And that's it in its most smallest level, but it's the same for us. If we're working towards something, we're so much more likely to stick to the savings plan because you've got the end in sight. There's a reason why you're doing this. And I think that human nature is such that that's how we behave, and we're much more likely to stick to our plan when we're planning for something, and that's your goals. And they're generally quite fun things. Yeah,
sure. The word you use, reason, really resonated when I'm reflecting on our industry, our approach, because goals are almost like a given checkpoint, if you like, that a lot of advisors have to check in on to understand what they're aiming for. But delving into the reason why they might have that goal, or if someone's having trouble unpacking what their actual goals are, understanding their bigger purpose or their reason for life, like you said to the kids, well, why are you saying? What's important about it? What's it going to achieve for you? What's it going to give to you in your life? What do you observe in terms of having that purpose behind the goals?
Well, I think that is incredibly important because that almost informs what it is that someone wants. But I will turn that question around to you and say that how do you see that play out for clients when there is the value behind the goals?
Yeah, I think it unblocks anything that they might have had trouble envisioning a bigger future for themselves, like understanding what is actually possible. If they understand the why, or what their key values are that really drive them, get them up in the morning, what they're actually shooting for, then it's like the goals are almost just flow out. It's so much easier to document and explain what their goals are if they've, I don't know, given a little bit of dialogue or purpose and meaning behind what sits behind them.
Yeah, and I think we like float through life and we know what's important to us, but it's rare, I think, that you actually sit and stop and articulate and sort of think to yourself about, well, like family's incredibly important, right? But it's because I love them and it's because I want them to succeed and I want them to do well. And then once we're having that conversation, the goals that fall out of that are things like, well, I want to make sure that I've got enough money for a great education for my kids. And it all ties back to what your, like, the value was at the beginning. So I think it's important. And whilst this is not necessarily about the holistic sense, for us, I think that is just incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, and the stories that fall out of those conversations are just, terribly interesting, but so insightful and valuable for us when we're constructing a plan and looking at someone's life.
How do you find when someone comes in to see you for the first time and they have an expectation versus what's actually happened when they leave? How do you find the experience for them, or how do you assess that they've found it?
Yeah, really interesting, because they come in often expecting to talk about their superannuation, investments, returns, or I guess a cursory level item. And as we start to unpack what's really important in their life and take a deeper dive into the broader issues, I think it's almost refreshing for them to go, okay, I know these guys can answer my initial question, but they've actually posed a lot deeper questions to us to actually reflect on. So I've observed they walk, if it's a couple we're talking about, they walk out of that initial meeting actually understanding themselves better and each other better. So you almost see that moment where they look across the table to each other and go, oh my God, I never realised that about you. That's so cool that I now understand that. And that explains why we've been doing X, Y, and Z and why we haven't been progressing our situation. So I think it's really, I guess revealing for us to understand, but for them in between their family dynamic, it's really revealing and insightful session for them. Yeah,
and I think it's so true that someone comes in and I want to come and talk to you about I want to retire, and they're thinking about their superannuation, and then they come in and we're talking about what are the goals. So it's not just a retirement income stream. It's like what do you want for your life and what do you want your legacy to be? And then to take them from there into like how are we actually thinking about risk, because that's on everyone's mind, but they just think investment equals risk. And so to be able to sort of take them through how we think about that, and then to raise all of the other things that are going on that might impact their financial life. So it might be insurance and it might be estate planning. I find it staggering how many people come in, don't realise that we're going to talk to them about that, and then are like, thank God, because I've been meaning to, we don't have wills and I've been meaning to get a will, or something like that. So when we think about holistic planning, we're definitely thinking about all of the strategy as well as the risks that might impact their family and their future. And I mean, sometimes people come in and they expect all of that, but there is a lot of people who would not realise that is what holistic financial planning actually means.
Yeah, that putting the risk management hat on is crucial, and almost taking off the table all the ones you can easily mitigate, and then you can focus on the risks that are actually worth taking in terms of the investment world, because you've covered everything that's really important to them.
Yeah, and to know that someone's going to hold their hand and make sure it happens. Because they're going to say, we went and saw a lawyer, but we haven't ever signed the wills, and say, well, we're going to make sure. And within 6 months' time, all these things are going to be done. And then we're going to be checking in on them to make sure that they remain right for you. Because that's the next piece of the puzzle is, it's all well and good to set something up, but it's the regular progress and review of it to make sure that it's still right, because we're all changing, our goals change, our lives change, and we need to make sure that if we put a plan together that it can flex with you and your life.
Yeah, cool. I like that holding their hand analogy, or treading the path with them. How do you see some of your longer term relationships, how they've panned out? Because that initial body work is really intensive and deep. And then as you progress through the years, how do you observe your relationship with the clients progressing from that initial intensity?
I think we definitely have I think you get to have a stronger, more like friendship-like relationship. But I think actually the best thing that you see in the longer term clients is their own confidence and financial literacy. And it might be maybe the type of clients that I work with, but I think you even see this in business owners, because we don't know what we don't know, and we're all experts in our field. And so they come in and they think that they've got an idea of something, but you can see people's confidence and financial literacy grow over a 3 to 5 year period of time. And I always think that within 3 years, they get a really good grasp of it. And then all of the investment concepts that might have been new to them, or for someone who really understands investment, but maybe tax and the inner workings of tax is an issue for them, they become so much more like they understand it. You can have a conversation, they're asking the right questions. That is a very cool thing, because then I think that is what I suppose empowers them to have real control over the financial future. And yes, we're there doing a whole bunch of stuff for them and managing the investments, but they also feel like they're confident, they're asking the right questions, they know their money's in the right place. When something changes, they know that where they need to come and what they need to do.
Yep. So when there is a significant change in their life, and we then draw back the initial meeting where we unpacked all that important stuff, do you find occasion where it's a really good safety net to come back to and be able to redirect them from there?
Completely, yes, absolutely.
Yep.
I bet you do that too.
Yeah, it's really cool. So did have a client who just came in and said, I'm feeling a bit lost. I had this goal we spoke about, I want to buy a house. I can't find the right house. Everything else in my life seems losing direction. So yeah, we just revisited that process, and she said, oh my goodness, yeah, I remember who I am now. She just lost herself, and it was like quite an emotional thing to hear her say that and realise that, but so rewarding to see her walk out of the office with some direction and positivity about finding herself again.
Yeah, that's excellent.
It's a cool day at work.
Yeah. So if we wanted to wrap up this conversation about holistic advice, what is the advice that we would give to someone who was looking for a financial advisor?
Oh, yeah, good question. I think some context around, I guess, the industry and where it's come from to where it is today is probably quite an important distinction. Because I think the early days of sort of insurance salesmen and that sort of pushing different products for their interests, all those days are thankfully behind us, and it's really working towards each client's best interest now. Define that as you will. We see that as them leading more prosperous, engaging, happier lives. Great, if that's our mandate, that's our objective, excellent. But yeah, how do you then go about, if you've got confidence in the industry now, how do you go about it? I think it's just having conversations. Have several of them. If you're having a conversation that becomes more about the investments and that side of things too early, maybe have another conversation. Seek someone who gets you where you're at that point in time and can get a deeper understanding of where you're at and what you're actually after.
Yeah, what you have said is so important in terms of talking. So I think it is very important to find someone who is listening. So if you're looking for an advisor and you're walking into their office and they are telling you things, maybe that's not the right place to start. I think it is so important to make sure that you find someone who listens to you and understands you, what's important to you, and really inquires as to what you are planning for, because that gives them all the context, or at least the start of the context, to build a plan that's actually bespoke for you. And it's rare that you can just go in and someone give you an investment plan and one size fits all. It's so important to understand who you're working with and what they want. So I think in engaging an advisor, it's really important to make sure that you feel that they are listening to you and that you're being heard. You can ask questions, you can clarify, and above all, I think it's really important that you can build personal rapport, because you need to be able to trust them. That's like above all, when it comes to this kind of work, you want to trust your advisor.